So I spoke earlier about this report that there have been approximately 5,800 breakthrough COVID-19 infections, and that about 5% of those that 5,800 group required hospitalization. Sorry, 7% required hospitalization, and that 74 of those people had passed away. All of them were over the age of 60, and the majority of them, interestingly enough, of the breakthrough infections were female. Still an incredibly minor number.
Hmm.
It's over 60, but we're talking really over 60 in a lot of these cases. And the argument is that um, they still got COVID because a variant, and when in the
Right.
process they had gotten their first or second shot in these cases. There's a lot of details that are kind of left out in this. But and related to that, I wanted to, the CDC released a statement about this particular detail because we were literally talking about 0.0001% of vaccinated people, all of them in a certain age group, all of them with pre-existing conditions and other elements that could have caused their death, but that they technically tested positive and they died. So they said to date, health experts with the CDC said they're currently monitoring reported cases for, quote, clustering by patient demographics, geographic location, time since vaccination, vaccine type or lot number, and SARS-CoV-2 lineage, which variant they have, whether they had just gotten their shot and their body hadn't had a chance to build to immunity yet, which would indicate that it wasn't the fact that the vaccine wasn't efficacious, it was just that they were exposed before it got a chance to build up their immunity in their system. To date, according to them, no unexpected patterns have been identified in case demographics or vaccine characteristics, meaning that in these deaths, these 74 deaths and the 7% hospitalizations of these minor groups of these 5,800 that actually got the disease after the fact, none of those people were 3 weeks past their second dose, for example. None of those people had, and many of them were within the first window of their first dose, is basically what they're saying. And so
Right.
it's incredibly reassuring that if you follow your doctor's advice and you get both vaccinations, or in the case, I mean, Johnson Johnson's on pause. So currently, it's Pfizer and Moderna are the two they're the big games in town. Also, again, both ones that while they took pre-orders from Operation Fartsteed, which I'm sorry, I didn't have my sound effect up. I'm usually
I
better
was,
than that.
I was wondering where that might be.
Yeah, that during Operation Fartsteed,
Captain's log.
that they, while AstraZeneca and Johnson and Johnson worked pretty hand in glove with the task force that was run by Mike Pence. In the case of Pfizer and Moderna, they did not. They worked on their own. They said, well, yeah, we'll sell them to you if you want to give us the money up front. We know pretty much how much the doses are going to cost and how much it's going to cost us to create this thing, and we think we're onto something. If you want to pre-buy them, knock yourself out. And that's what we did. The U.S. pre-bought doses of almost everything. They had a chance to buy more of the Johnson & Johnson, but did not early on. Again, the pause for Johnson & Johnson is going to be another week as they work out whether or not the blood clot issue is something they can mitigate or something they have to watch, or that they can warn. If you are a person of this age, if you're male or female and you have this condition or you take these kinds of medications, they're going through those cases. There are very few of them, but they're going through those and going, okay, this is the through line. They're playing detective currently, and they're trying to find out what is the linkage, if any, they
Right.
can find that causes these blood clots. In the same way that we lost some folks to strokes, ischemic strokes during the last year that may or may not have tested positive for COVID, as far as, they died and then nobody tested them because they had just died. One of the members of Sam Cedars, the Majority Report, passed away quick, suddenly from a stroke, from a blood clot, and that very well could have been his body's reaction to having fought off COVID, but having one of these lurking issues. And so they may find out that, yes, some of the folks that are getting Johnson & Johnson, actually, they got exposed, but they didn't have enough antibodies to peg the needle in terms of getting the test, and let us know that they, that we didn't know officially that they had COVID. It didn't show up on the test. And therefore, the vaccination had very little to do with that. It was just where we were sending them. There were groups of people we're sending, since they're sending Johnson & Johnson to areas of the country where refrigeration is a problem, where medical facilities are not as readily available, that the people that may be getting those things also may have other health issues that are specific to region, to, rural diseases, as it were. And so that has to be a factor going in. Overall, though, the Pfizer and Moderna efficacy is extraordinary on measure with every other disease so far. Pfizer has come out and said that you may need another booster in 6 months because they're checking people's resilience from the tests they did last year. And then that may be enough to get you where your body goes. So 2 separated by about 3 weeks, and then another one 6 months later as a booster. But that's a maybe. That's not definite. That is something that they are presenting as a possibility. But the point is that this is working. Over the course of the country, while cases have gone up and spiked in areas like Michigan and in Detroit literally ran out of ICU beds because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Largely you can tell which groups and where are getting sick from this. You can tell which groups and where are skewing the numbers. And it is indeed anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. Both those groups of people are creating a situation where they're causing the spread to grow, and they are themselves becoming sick. And repeated stories keep showing up about this. The people who didn't believe in it, and then their last words were, "I was wrong," before they were hooked up to a ventilator. I mean, it's the poetry of our time that we're hearing a lot of these. Now, on our way out the door, by the way, like I said, I will be in Florida next week when I'm doing the live show, and I won't be streaming on Monday because it's a travel day. When I arrive in Florida, having been fully vaccinated, I still, before I go to work on Tuesday with the cast, I and every cast member and every crew member will have been tested for COVID within 24 hours of the first day of work. Not 3 days, because Florida, you can mingle for 3 days in Florida, and your test effectively is worthless. It's meaningless.
I bet.
So Tuesday morning, this is the new abnormal currently, is that I'm going to fly in Monday, like I said, having been fully vaccinated, wearing my mask and all that stuff. Tuesday morning, I get up early, I go over, and they do have free testing, free rapid testing. Every rapid test I've had to get for work in the last few months when I've gotten them because I had to go do a live show. Mm-hmm. They gave me 3 days, which always seems so weird. It has to be, at least the last 3 days. It would seem like you would want it the same day, but I've had to pay out of pocket, $130 to $150 for each of these to get them as close to the actual thing as possible. Yeah. Otherwise, scheduling them a week out seems absurd. But now we are at the point where you can get tested for free in a lot of places and quickly. And then we are moving into, and I think this is one of the most extraordinary things, is that we've got news from the CDC and the NIH that a possible AIDS vaccine, an HIV vaccine, may be on the horizon because of all the advances made in mRNA vaccines because of COVID. Because of the bum rush to do this, they learned so much so quickly and applied so much known science to this that they're like, oh, okay, now we know how we could, using AI, they are now able to craft molecules that are laser focused on strains of disease and don't, like in the terms of, like chemotherapy, which is a poison that you hope kills the cancer before it kills you, that starts laser focusing, the efficacy of both vaccines and treatments on the actual, on the atomic level, on the cellular level of these diseases that we encounter. And that will usher in an age of health and protection that I don't know if we have the ability to grasp at this point. That, you know, they're obviously going to be playing whack-a-mole with strains, with both this and other diseases, as they will do, as you do with any contagion, as they do with SARS and MERS, you know, in regular cycle, as swine flu and bird flu remind us every few years that they, you know, but because they have a baseline vaccine developed, they're able to modify it slightly and stop the spread as quickly as possible. Well, this will make it even more efficacious and more specific. So this idea that it might hurt your cells or hurt your genes or mess with your own body or your, you know, blood, all that stuff, because of how narrow focus this is actually getting, is, I think, one of the most beautiful things to look forward to over the next 5 to 10 years. We are, after living through this year of lockdown and fear and concern for our relatives and our friends and ourselves, and not knowing if if our grandkids will see their grandparents ever again, and what if they pass away alone, and all the horror stories we've heard about people, passing in that situation. We are very close to a circumstance where if a disease like this takes somebody, or is in the process of taking somebody, people who are related to them can get inoculated against it fairly quickly and visit that person in the hospital freely, even if
that could be nice,
even without any danger to themselves. And that our medical facility, and I have to give, there was a period when we were clapping. We're at the end of the show, but and I want to thank everybody for their super chats today and their support, and the patrons, and Johnny Million for being there, and everybody in Chicago. But we're at the point where we can say we were all applauding the EMTs and our first responders during the beginning of this, and I think that there became a normalization of, well, that's just life right now. These people are exhausted. They've been through hell. And over the next year, you're going to need to take one of them to a comedy show, buy them a drink. If you know a nurse or a doctor or an emergency room tech or a ventilation expert or an anesthesiologist, and you run across them, pay for their appetizer, buy them a drink, send them balloons, do something. Because they're seeing the horizon finally for the first time, where the rest of us have not had this daily exposure to this virus the way they have. Thanks, guys, so much. We'll see you next time. It's the House Parts Radio program, Mega Worldwide. See you next week.